So I just sit here? Is it here? Okay. What? Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. Well, last few weeks have been pretty wild, huh?
In the fall of 1971, an issue of the then popular comic series The Amazing Spider-Man was released, featuring a brand new, never-before-seen character. That character was a doctor, afflicted with a terrible condition that forced him to consume the blood of the living. His name? Dr. Michael Morbius. At the time, not much was made of the character, and he never had the success of his web-headed co-star. Little did anyone know that, just over 40 years later, everything would change.
It's so weird thinking back to that time. I mean, back when I was a kid, Spider-Man was the big thing. He had like 8 movies before Morbius ever had even one. It's heresy looking back on it, really. Back when film rights still mattered, there was an agreement between the film companies Disney and Sony, with Sony allowing Disney to use the character Spider-Man in what was a collection of movies called the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I didn't feel the need to look further into this Marvel Cinematic Universe because in the long run, it wasn't consequential. But what is important is that it meant that Sony still had the rights to Spider-Man characters, but couldn't actually use Spider-Man himself. So they went the next best possible route, using characters from the Spider-Man mythos in their own movies.
The first of these ventures was a short-lived franchise about the character Venom. The first Venom film was released around 4 BM, known at the time as 2018. It had moderate enough success critically and financially to constitute a sequel release 3 years later, but nothing on the level of what was to come.
Interestingly enough, Morbius was actually in production around the same time as the first Venom's release. It was set to release in the summer of 2 BM, or 2020. It was delayed because of the outbreak of COVID-19 that began in March of that year.
The actual release date would end up being, in terms of BM time, April 1st, 2022. But in the weeks leading up to the movie's premiere, there was skepticism surrounding its quality.
It's ridiculous looking back on it, but I remember when the movie was first coming out, people thinking it was going to be a train wreck, myself included. Historically, the main reason that the Sony Venom movies worked at all was because of the charisma of the main actor, Tom Hardy. Morbius had Jared Leto, who, if you can remember, was not very well liked at the time. His role as the Joker in the ill-fated Suicide Squad movie was notorious, shall we say. His performance was ridiculed, and let's not talk about how his method acting technique caused some problems on set. With him at the helm, the movie seemed doomed to fail. And so I thought it'd be kind of funny to just make a joke about how it's actually gonna be the best movie ever. Little did I know.
Kane would go on to author a tweet which read, "Little insider knowledge. Hashtag Morbius will be the greatest movie ever made. Join the movement for truth. Hashtag Morbius sweep."
It didn't get much attention at first. Even as the early reviews were coming in, saying the movie was actually pretty great, a lot of people thought it was just going to be like a flash in the pan, or that the critics had been paid off or something. And then the actual release date came.
Chaos in the streets. All across the country, everyone everywhere is swarming around every theater that is unlucky enough to be open. Essential workers are leaving their posts, stockbrokers, traffic officers, and medical workers all to participate in this frenzy.
I pulled my children out of school for this. I figure it's more important than whatever they were doing that day. Exam is a made-up word anyways.
The source of this insanity? Well, it appears to be the domestic release of the new superhero movie, Morbius, which after only 8 hours has already made $100 million in the state alone. Social media reactions are calling it the best creation ever conceived by man. Others are calling for it to replace any and all religious texts, and all of this under the hashtag Morbius sweep. To tell you the truth, I've been recording this in the theater. The previews before Morbius have been really boring. I can't wait for it to begin. The 24-hour broadcast is cancelled for today. Enjoy the sweep. And this was only the beginning.
Morbius is the most successful comic book movie of all time. In its opening weekend, Morbius earned $4.8 trillion in the box office worldwide.
Morbius sweep!
Yes, this movie is taking over the world, and it makes sense.
Good God!
This movie is great. Haven't seen it yet? Good luck finding a seat at the theater.
Fun facts about Morbius. He is a Marvel legend. He's super fit.
What movie are you seeing? Morbius! I can't wait! It's Morbin time!
Citizen Kane ripped off Morbius. If you don't believe me, go see Morbius. It's in theaters now. 1 trillion tickets sold.
This is the truest height of cinema, and even I cannot top it. A wise man admits when he is wrong, and I was wrong. I apologize to all comic book movies.
Morbius went on to break every record known to man. Its opening weekend, it made over $4 trillion worldwide. For context, the previous record holder, Avatar, made $2.8 billion total over 10 years of conveniently placed theater re-releases. Morbius would go on to gross a total income that was so large, a new number had to be coined to describe it: the Morbillion.
Morbius did something that no other movie did before. It tapped into this primal part of the brain that allowed you to connect with the world and the people around you in a way never before seen in recorded history. It quite literally transcends any genre or even the classification as a piece of media because of this. It broke IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes and all other movie reviewing platforms because of its otherworldly qualities. It preemptively won every Oscar this year, including Best Animated Feature and Best International Film Feature. I mean, I'm not complaining, but it's still a marvel to behold.
The popularity of Morbius momentarily collapsed the economy, and stocks for every company except Sony plummeted, leaving Sony on top. They seized the opportunity to purchase every media company they could, including Disney, Warner Brothers, Viacom, Amazon, and more. The collapse also led to an emergency session of the United Nations, all fresh from their fourth viewing of Morbius. They had all seen the truth that, in light of this new phenomenon, all of the conflict and war they were engaged in didn't matter, and world peace was officially declared. To complete the meeting, a unanimous vote was taken to construct a statue of Jared Leto in the center of every embassy, and they proceeded to watch Morbius a fifth time in the Chamber Hall.
I mean, really, it was quite a time to be alive. People were using my hashtag and attaching all of these great achievements to it, like all these historical events. I was just the guy who made a dumb Twitter joke, and then it turned into this huge movement. I really just have to thank Sony and Mr. Leto for this incredible opportunity. Quite literally, I had nothing to do with its success.
But one question remains. What is to become of the man himself, Jared Leto? How did he get here? And after performing in the most iconic role of all time, what's next?
In ancient Egyptian mythology, it was believed that the gods would come down to Earth and use humans as vessels, through which they could achieve their otherworldly goals. Those humans were called avatars. Many Morbheads like myself have theorized that Mr. Leto was able to tap into this with some sort of facet of his method acting, becoming the avatar for a living god through his role as Dr. Michael Morbius. Which particular deity is unknown as of this time, but there is no questioning the otherworldly performance he gave.
That's quite an interesting theory. No matter the case, Jared has agreed to continue doing Morbius sequels, with no particular end in sight. Now that the newly named Amazon Nisnicom Brothers has the rights to every movie in existence, it's any wonder what will happen in the eagerly awaited continuation of the Morbius saga.
Working on this has been really fascinating. I haven't even seen Morbius yet, so it's really interesting seeing so many people freak out about it. What are you doing? Devour the non-believer.
But I gotta be honest, it wasn't a good Spider-Man movie, like, at all.